Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second segment of the episode. If you're on YouTube, welcome to the second video. Something we will be talking about for our second segment of the episode is, I don't know how much traction this has gotten on Twitter as of yet, because I haven't been on Star Wars Twitter as much recently, but there has been some new news coming out from Lucasfilm, from Disney, from Star Wars, that officially in development, granted very early stages of development, there is a new trilogy for Star Wars being developed, which, from what we know, it's supposedly being, I forget what the director's name is, but it's being directed by this guy who supposedly is going to make episodes 10, 11, and 12, the next trilogy. And I've always said this, right? If you've heard us talk about Star Wars on this channel before, you've probably heard me say that I don't personally think Star Wars will ever be able to get close to the heights that the IP was once at until they make a new trilogy. And so today we're going to be talking about, stuff that we think that they should potentially be doing / avoiding for this trilogy, and how Star Wars could realistically, get close to the heights it was once at. Because it's never going to get back to, if we're being realistic, it'll probably never get back to, original trilogy levels, post-original trilogy stuff. I don't think it'll ever get back to that. Yeah. But how can it be revived, if you want to use that word? Yeah. So that's what we're going to be talking about today.
And I will say, I think we're going to go two different directions with this. Because I think I know what your opinions are from our previous conversations. And
maybe. Do you want to start with your first talking point, or do you want me to start?
I'll start.
Okay.
Because this is what I'm saying when I think we're going to go different directions.
Okay.
I think you're going to go High Republic.
No, I'm not. Actually.
You're not actually?
No.
Okay.
No.
My opinion...
And the reason why is because episodes 10, 11, and 12 have to be chronologically after sequels.
Oh, okay. That makes more sense then. My ideology is I think it should be a long time after the sequels.
I agree.
I don't think we
should... I agree. I actually really agree, yes.
I don't want to see the Empire. I barely want to see remnants of the Empire. And here's my bigger one. I don't want to see teachings of the Jedi or the Sith. I want to see two completely original takes on the Force. Whether it be a guy, whether it be we're following a rogue who has the Force, can tap into it, but he doesn't know what it is, and he's defining it for himself. Because obviously a big point of the prequels was the flawed ideology of the Jedi.
Yes.
And we see, because I've obviously started looking more into this, the Force includes emotion, and the Jedi obviously very much were denying the Force of that, which caused the extremism that then caused the fucking
they denied themselves of any emotion that caused too much fragility and intensity.
Yeah, all of that, which obviously was the benefactor, I guess, of Anakin's hard flip, whatever.
Yeah,
I want to see a very different take. This is why I asked you about the Night Sisters before. Is not just fucking Jedi, not just Sith lightning, not just Jedi Force healing, any of that. I want to see a different take. I want to see different usages, like the Night Sister magic. I think that's one of my favorite parts about the Cal Kestis games, is we get to see just different things about the Force, whether it's the Force Echoes, the Night Sisters, whatever. So a completely original take, whether it's a guy who has no master, knows nothing, has never seen a Jedi scroll, has never seen Sith teachings, doesn't even know what they are, because it's been hundreds, maybe even you go 1,000 years into the future.
Yeah, okay.
That's I think that'd just be compelling. I think it'd be a good way to just rebrand yourself after how bad the sequels failed on trying to go off of those philosophies a little bit. And yeah.
Okay, I fully understand what you're trying to say. I don't think that will happen. In terms of, I don't think that they are just going to completely get rid of the words Jedi and Sith. That will never happen. But I'll go into my first talking point that has a lot to do with what you just said. I personally think you just need a full reset in terms of, considering that these movies will likely be episodes 10, 11, and 12, I think you need to set it at least 100 years after the death of Rey. And no characters from the sequels should really transfer over in any real meaningful way, because none of those characters resonated with anyone.
I have one character who's not from the sequels, but I will mention him later.
Oh, I have other, yeah. But my point is, though, there's a very specific reason why I say 100 years after the death of Rey. And I'm going to very quickly move on to my very next talking point, which has to do with what I'm about to say. One of the big things that was also reported in the same report where we're supposedly getting episodes 10, 11, and 12 is that this will be a continuation of the Skywalker saga, right? First trilogy, second trilogy, third trilogy, all of those are technically the Skywalker saga. Unfortunately, yes. But since this trilogy will still be part of the Skywalker saga, I think you need to better capture the sense of family between the characters, even if those characters are not Skywalkers by blood. And the reason why I say not by blood is because Rey, unfortunately, is technically a Skywalker. Not by blood, and she's a Palpatine by blood, but she calls herself Rey Skywalker by the end of Rise of Skywalker, right? The entire pre-Disney era of Star Wars was the story of the Skywalker family, whether it was Luke, Anakin, Padme, or Leia, or even characters like Obi-Wan and Ahsoka. So my point is, the reason why I say 100 years after the death of Rey is because I personally think that it's still long enough for you to basically say, we know the trilogies were a mistake, we're done, right? Like, we don't need to bring any of that over. We don't need to try to justify that trilogy to make this trilogy better. We can just kind of just move on, right? That's enough time to move on. But it's also not too much time to say that there was some sort of like distant relative who has Skywalker blood in them to continue the Skywalker saga.
I don't know. For me, like, kind of just saying it's the Skywalker blood is just kind of pulling on the nostalgia strings.
I get what you mean, but the reason why I disagree is because if you think about it, right? Think about fantasy in general, right?
They all follow one bloodline.
But the reason why those bloodlines matter is because those bloodlines have something special about that blood. Yes, Skywalker blood is important because Anakin is a literal son of the Force. So his blood is inherently divine, I guess you want to say it. That's why Skywalker blood is so much more special than any other bloodline.
I agree with you. I just have never liked it.
It's a part of Star Wars.
And
so
realistically, this is probably gonna be like, if we do that, it would end up being like, what's his name? Kylo Ren's grandchild or great-grandchild or something along that line.
Right, but that's more than enough time to not really be too affected by the damage of the sequels while still being able to bring over a Skywalker.
Yeah, I mean, I can agree with that, I guess. I just have never liked that trope of there being one special bloodline that gets more. Like, I know you've never watched Naruto, but if you watch it, there's a guy named, I'm blanking on his name, Hashirama, and they kind of just use his cells as just the fucking plot hole patcher. I don't think it would be used like that. I think it would more so just be a way of trying to continue the saga. Yeah, I've always kind of hated that trope, but we'll see. Because either they make it into a shitty trope, or they make it, they either do it good, they make it into a shitty trope, or they make it into just a plot hole patcher. And it's more than likely going to be one of the last two than it is the first one.
Maybe, but but like, we're assuming all of this stuff is going to be done correctly.
Yes.
So, give your next one. Give your next talking point.
Okay, yeah, here's my next one. I don't want to see a dictatorship type evil side. Or like a Sith side, evil side, however you want to do it. I don't want to see that.
You just don't want to see the dictatorship.
No, I'm going to go into it. So, as good as Palpatine is, I no longer want to see an evil, and like a main antagonist that's evil just for the sake of being evil.
I'm gonna get into that later. I want
to see writing that's in it. I don't want it, like, I don't want them to treat it like the dark side is a drug and they just get off to being evil and getting the dark side flowing. Like, I don't want to see, even though I do think that could be done well, I don't want to see that. I think there's way more directions you can go with how the Force has been established to work, that it creates so many interesting avenues to go down. My main two, I want to have, you've talked about this before, I want a very religious aspect played into the Force, whether you do it for the main protagonist or the main antagonist. So when I say for the main protagonist, this is kind of why I say I wanted like this kind of rogue by himself guy, is similar to how Victor was in Arcane, where it's like his power and people just started following him for what he had. I think that would be very interesting. Or you could go a route like the Bene Gesserit from Dune, where the main antagonists are manipulating people through making themselves into religious beings through their power, and manipulating whole societies based off of that. I think either of those directions, if you take a religious route, can work beautifully, just depending on how you do it.
Yeah, which I don't have this written down, but that decision has a lot to do with the fact of, are we still going to make this a kid movie? Because if you're more open to growing up with your audience, you could do that amazingly well. But if you go down the route of, we need to sell toys, we need this to connect with the younger generation, I still think you could do that. But I just don't think you could do it as deep in a way of a Dune does it, or as deep of a way as maybe Arcane did it in season 2 with Victor. I don't think you could really go all out with it in that way. But I fully agree with you. I've always said from the beginning that the way I would want a Jedi to be perceived is how Victor was perceived in his little village thing in Arcane in season 2. And that I personally think that there's a lot of religious stuff you could do with the Force, because the Force is so much different than some of the more religious stuff that you see in other franchises, where there is very clear evidence that the Force is real, right? Very, very if you're not, it's not a matter of believing or not, it's just, have you seen it or have you not seen it?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of religious stuff you can do with that, right? In terms of, I think if you have kind of a more Zack Snyder approach, right? Which sounds crazy to say, but if you look at that character and say, oh, this character should be seen as a messiah of types because of how much power they wield, I think that's a very interesting approach to go down with a Jedi or a Sith. So I would like that a lot.
Can I say one thing about this is one thing I think it could work even better if you do that kind of sole religious figure approach, but I would like to see a new unique type of weapon for the main character.
No more lightsabers?
No, not no more lightsabers, but a different variation of it, where it's not just obviously we've seen.
Give me your idea then.
We've seen the two-sided sabers. We've seen Ahsoka's. I don't know what they're called.
She just has two sabers, yeah.
Yeah, or stuff like that, or the dark saber, something like that. Whether you want to kind of retcon how kyber crystals are, or something like that, a new unique type of weapon. Whether it's I don't know. This is partially coming from I've played a lot of Assassin's Creed Valhalla recently, and I really like how the bearded axes look.
The bearded axes?
Yes, but a new unique type of weapon that comes into a new unique type of fighting style. So it's not just swinging swords or something. Whether it's a scythe and you really play into the religious stuff, or really have it be like a becomer of death type thing, or you do an axe, or you do just anything. That's why I'm saying it could be. You could have it go with kyber crystals and lightsabers and all of that, which I doubt they'll ever drop lightsabers.
They're not going to drop.
They're not going to drop lightsabers. But I would.
If anything, they might make a different variation of it. Yes,
I would like to see a different variation that's very unique and forces a unique, if you know what the main Egyptian swords are called, I forget, but they have a curve in them halfway through. It looks really cool, and it introduces different types of fighting styles where they kind of spin it off of the curve of the sword and give themselves momentum for the cut, stuff like that, which adds to the choreography, which is something that Star Wars builds its brand off of. Yeah,
that's another thing that the sequels really failed on. You need to course correct on that. You need to bring back good fight choreography. But my next talking point, it's probably the most important point of this entire episode, regardless of what any of us two bring up after this, is you have to plan the story out. You have to. You cannot repeat, which in the report that I saw that led us to making this segment, supposedly they are trying to learn from their mistakes and plan it out. But when I say plan the story out, I cannot stress enough. You need to know where your story is going from the very beginning, and have every character needs to have a planned out arc from the beginning. In the original trilogy, this was a mistake that George Lucas made and then overcorrected in the prequel trilogy. Because in the original trilogy, he kind of didn't know where he would, he knew kind of more of the overall story, but some of the details you could tell were clearly made up along the way. The weird sister stuff with Leia what is obviously a fact that a lot of Star Wars fans have looked over, because clearly George just didn't know where those two characters were headed yet. He learned from his mistakes, made the prequel trilogy, but then kind of focused a little too much on we need to get the overarching story right, and kind of overlooked a lot of the other stuff, which ends up being flaws within the prequels. The sequels just then went on and said, we're just going to try to match the original trilogy as much as we can, and then also said, well, we want to have different looking movies for all three movies, so we're going to give it to 3 different directors every time. That obviously didn't work, because then you had Rian Johnson, who made Last Jedi and killed off your main villain. All of a sudden you have nowhere left to go. You got to bring back Palpatine, and it's just a mess because you didn't plan out everything. You like Rey was not supposed. Daisy Ridley, the woman who played Rey, she didn't even know that she was going to be a Skywalker until they rewrote it while filming the reshoots of Rise of Skywalker. So that's like, reshoots don't take place until like 4 months before the movie comes out. It's like she didn't know she was going to be a Skywalker until 4 months before the final movie released, because they originally were going to make her a nobody. Then they were going to make her a Kenobi. And at one point, then she was going to be a Palpatine. Now she's a Skywalker. And then now it's just insane, right? You need to plan out everything. Know who your director is going to be for all 3 movies. You got to make the same writing team for all 3 movies. You have to have all the character arcs planned out from the beginning. All your overarching story planned out from the beginning.
Realistically, you should have most of your... the first script should be done. By the time the first script is done, the second script should already be halfway done. Whether you make, even if you make little tweaks while you're filming the movie, the script should be pretty much written consecutively. There should not be years of post-production and all of this in between writing the next script.
Exactly.
Because the way you're going to view your...
you should have the whole story planned out from the start. You should know exactly what you're doing.
Yeah, bro.
And that is like the biggest part. You need to do that. That's a non-negotiable.
You can't go in and just be like,
you can't.
Fuck it, we'll find out.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Because what happens then is you bring new people on because some people want to retire, or go do something else, or whatever. They have different ideas. That's gonna change what you're gonna do. All of that, or even you, bro. I'm sorry. If you make one movie, film one movie, and release it 6 years later when you're filming the next one, you're going to have different ideas. And that's going to make, whether it's better or worse, most of the time it's worse. Let's be honest.
Yeah. You just have to stick with one plan. Stick with a plan. Stick with one vision. Where even if certain people leave the project or leave the trilogy at certain points, you still have one vision. So even if you bring someone else in, you tell them, this is the vision that we are doing.
Yeah.
And you just stick with that. And I don't think that's asking for much. Really, I don't think it is.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Give your next talking point.
Hold on, I gotta open it back up. 2 seconds. Okay, this is what I said I would like to see. Whether he's a real character or a cameo. We did say this when we talked about the movie. I think seeing a grown Grogu.
Okay.
Because obviously we know his race can live for hundreds, if not thousands of years.
Yes.
I think there's no way he's not going to be in this trilogy, if we're being honest with ourselves. He is arguably...
Honestly, I'm surprised I didn't think about that when writing down my talking points.
He is one of the most popular Star Wars characters ever, whether you like that fact or not. That's just objective. Seeing a grown version of him, and seeing, even if they are working with the rebels, seeing how growing up with the ideology of a mercenary, seeing how that affects him and his vision and what he's capable of doing with the Force... I think that would be interesting. I would like to see his I would like to see him with an actual personality beyond just cute millennial puppy.
Yeah.
I would like to see that. And I think there's just a lot you can do with him, because obviously we've only seen 3 characters from his race. Yoda was thousands of years old, and obviously had his ideology very focused on. I'm not going to say the Jedi way specifically, but
no, it was the Jedi way.
Yeah, it was mostly that. So if we see someone with all of these years behind them, like one of the oldest races, like hundreds of years, how that affects their style of the Force without the restrictions that follow their ideology, I think that's a good route to go with his character. You could still sell plushies even if you won't sell as much because he's not a baby. And it's gonna be a nice little pull for everyone that grew up, like for the kids younger than us that grew up watching The Mandalorian and shit. Yeah,
I agree with that. I'm honestly surprised I didn't think about Grogu and writing down my points, but I do agree with that. And
I wouldn't want him to have a major role, but I do
that's
think
true.
I don't think you can ignore him unless he ends up getting killed off before this trilogy, which there's no way that'll happen.
Well, it could happen, but he wouldn't die of like, oh, he's just like too old.
It's not. It could. It's not. It could happen. It's never going to happen. Is kind of what I'm saying. There.
Okay, yeah. I agree with you, but when I was writing my points down, I had a different character in mind for a slightly different purpose, but a similar purpose to what you're saying, in terms of like, you need a link between current Star Wars and this potential trilogy, right? You're saying Grogu. I think that could work. A character,
Road to the Hut.
no, a character that I thought about, is my next point, is that in my opinion, I think you have to incorporate Ahsoka. Now, listen, this is obviously partly biased, because if you've heard me talk about Star Wars in any capacity on this podcast, you know Ahsoka is my favorite female character of all time. I named my dog after that character. I love that character, right? But I think you need someone to be kind of like the quote-unquote inspiration for that generation of Jedi. And I don't think you can use Rey. Because if you use Rey, it might make sense within the universe, but from a viewer perspective, it won't resonate as much, because no one likes Rey. No one liked Rey. No one resonates with Rey's character. With Ahsoka, people grew up with Ahsoka, right? When she was introduced in the animated Clone Wars movie, people hated her. Now she's a fan favorite character. Everyone loves Ahsoka. So whether it's, I don't think she's probably not going to be alive by that point, right? We don't know how long Togrutas really live, right? But she more than likely will not be alive by that point. But it's more of a sense of like it's more the sense of like having like a looming figure of like trying to live up to something, trying to live up to someone, right? Model your ideology around something. Like, I think Ahsoka could very easily be that character. Once her story is told, once her show is probably done, you could very easily like make her that kind of legacy character of like, maybe that's the link, right? Say Ahsoka one day has a child.
Yeah,
Ahsoka's child could be the main character of this sequel.
I don't know if she'd necessarily have a child. I would say they're probably going to go more of the route of her student teaches their student, then teaches the protagonist.
Maybe something like that, yes. But my point is, you could very easily make a connection to Ahsoka, and that's how you do the Skywalker saga.
Now that I think about it, that actually feels very likely, because then they're going to tie that even more into the, because then it's going to be the Skywalker fucking
exactly. In order to tie that into the Skywalker saga, you have the Skywalker link be Ahsoka.
I do agree with that. I just personally don't want previous teachings to be a main focus for the
but I think Ahsoka is not the Jedi teachings.
No, but I get what you're saying, but I mean, like, I think it would be an interesting thing to watch a character discover they have the Force and not have anyone there to tip them in one direction. Just kind of have to fully entrench themselves in it and decide what they want to do with it.
I still think you could do that, but the fact of the matter is that as much as I think that's a good idea, this is still going to be the Skywalker saga by the end of the day. And I think that is a good link, and without like completely like just it is dismissing Rey, but it's not like downplaying Rey, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right?
Do you think we're going to see a Skywalker temple where they have statues of all the Skywalker?
No, we're not going to see that.
We're going to have Rey right big in the middle?
No, we're not going to see that.
No.
But I think Ahsoka could definitely be that link that will connect with the fans. Because I think the Rey link of the Skywalker saga will not connect with the fans. And I think as much as Grogu could probably play a decent role, he's not going to connect the fans to the Skywalker saga part.
I do agree with you there. And I think Grogu should be there. What do we say?
Do you have any more talking points?
I forgot what I was going to say. Do your next one.
I'll do okay. This has to do with a point that you brought up a bit ago, in that I want the dark side users to be well-written, tragic characters. In that, do not make the same mistake of character assassinating another character just to make your antagonist seem more tragic. They did that with Kylo Ren, and it ruined Luke Skywalker. But you're also not going to make a quote-unquote better Palpatine who's just evil because he's evil. You need good writing around this tragic character to make it so that you're not like don't make a Grogu a bad person, or don't make a Grogu like a Luke Skywalker type of role in order to make your antagonist more tragic.
Yeah.
Your antagonist could be tragic without having to derail another character's symbolism.
This is where like when I mentioned the lone user falling into the Force, I kind of meant that more for the antagonist. Like, imagine like a civil war, someone's whole village gets bombed, they're the only survivor. That's when their Force like explodes out. Obviously, it's not going to necessarily directly explode outwards, but then they don't have any teaching. They just have their own watching their family die and shit like that, and that's the driving force behind them. So they're just going on this revenge path or something like that, which then eventually leads too much, and you plan to actually just have their destroyed mental state or something like that. Kind of like a Jinx if she had no one if Silka was never there.
Yeah.
Like,
I will say this though, one of the things that like I'm kind of thinking about this right now as you were speaking is one of the things I would really like to see from an antagonist point of view is a Jedi Civil War kind of thing, which I think you could very well make that happen in terms of like maybe having a section of the Jedi who disagree with the teachings separate off and use the dark side while probably being like in denial of using the dark side and still thinking that they're doing it for the right reasons. And then you make a Jedi Civil War without having to like, because the more I think about it, the Sith haven't existed properly in way too long for it to work in the like 100 years past the death of Rey, because then it's like, okay, the last real Sith Lord was Palpatine, because Snoke wasn't real.
Yeah.
Kylo Ren wasn't an actual Sith Lord, and he converted back to Ben Solo. So where's the rule? The rule of two ended at Palpatine. So I think the antagonist the lead antagonist should be an ex-Jedi who creates a Jedi Civil War.
Here's my thing with that is what I don't want to see is I don't want to see them just go into the cycle of the Force is balanced, it's unbalanced, it's balanced, it's unbalanced, because that was after the original trilogy, the Force is balanced. That's kind of the whole point of Anakin bringing balance to the Force. Is his death is what finally brought the balance to the Force.
Oh yeah, him killing Palpatine.
Or him killing excuse me. And then they kind of backtracked on that in the sequels, where it became unbalanced and then balanced again. And then I don't want to just see, while I do think a Civil War could be a compelling watch, I don't want to see the core point of the trilogy just be balancing these two scales. Even though that is a big factor of the Force, I would even if it's included, I don't want it to be the main thing that happens. And I feel like if you do a Jedi Civil War, that's the main thing that's going to end.
Well, because here's the thing with the balance talk. The reason why the balance conversation gets very confusing at times, because people don't really know what the balance within the Force actually means. In terms of balance does not mean equal number of dark side, equal number of light side. That's not what that means.
Yeah.
Balance within the Force means pretty much only light side, because the dark side of the Force is very explicitly said multiple times throughout multiple different projects. It is unnatural, meaning that even if you have one dark side user in the galaxy, that makes the Force unbalanced, because that's an unnatural part of the Force. That's like, I don't know what analogy would be good.
But the Jedi also unbalance the Force because they reject emotion, and the Force includes emotion.
Well, no. But that's the thing. It's not about. But that does not have to do with balance. That just more has to do with like the personal characters, and within that, the balance is literally just specifically how many Darksiders are there in the galaxy. If there's too many Darksiders, the Force is too off balance, and that's why you get that word. If you have no Darksiders, there is no more question about is the Force in balance, because it is. But if the characters are still having issues, whether it's because they're forcing themselves not to accept emotion, that has nothing to do with the Force being in balance. That has to do with you just living by a bad philosophy. That's all that is, right? So I personally think that you can make the balance stuff work if you have the Jedi who maybe split off into a different section to create that potential civil war think that they are still in the right. That's how I think you avoid that like balance like conversation.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I just really don't want to see the balance again. Like it gets old when you're
fair enough.
When you're on your 12th movie still doing it. It gets a little old.
It's fair enough. Yeah.
Here, you want to keep going? Because I don't have it written down, but I blanked on what I'm trying to say.
Okay. One of my next one is kind of a smaller one before I get into like my last big one is use the unknown regions. The galaxy, the known galaxy of the Star Wars universe has the core, the outer rim, the inner rim. Like you have these kind of sections that have kind of been explored throughout different projects, right? The unknown regions have barely been touched to the point where we've seen them go to a separate galaxy before going into the unknown regions. The unknown regions, I think we've seen 2 of those planets because we saw in Rise of Skywalker where Palpatine went to Exegol, I think it was called, the ancient Sith planet. We saw that planet, and I think we saw another one at some point, and I'm forgetting what it is. That's 2 planets in the entirety of the unknown regions. You have to use those more. You just have to. Because if you want to introduce different Force abilities, different connections to the Force, different ways to use it, that's how you can do it. Is say that the unknown regions have a different a connection to the Force, and therefore you're able to connect to the Force in different ways when you're in this section of the galaxy, right? Because we've seen that be the explanation before, right? Dagobah is the planet where Yoda goes after Revenge of the Sith that has such a big dark side presence within the Force that it hides Yoda's natural light side presence, and that's why he's able to stay there for the entirety of the Empire. So you already have that within canon since the beginning of Star Wars, that that all you need is to say that, oh, like this section of the galaxy or this planet has this energy within the Force, and if you want to connect to the Force and explore the Force in different ways, I think using the unknown regions is such a good way to do that I think it's almost a failure if you don't use them.
I do agree with you. And since you mentioned Dagobah, I would like to see the interactions with the Force beyond just the citizens, like how the presence that the planet gives off, stuff like that, or like how, or what I mean is like how it's in everyone, and how it's not how it's just like, oh well, only the Jedi, only the Sith. Like, no, I want to see how it's in everyone and how that actually affects stuff like that, whether it's sensing people or stuff like that, or just having some people who can use small amounts of the Force in smaller portions, whether it's like just lifting a cup up or some shit like that. That way it's like it creates this essence of the Force. It's like, and it creates this hierarchy where it's not just these people who we can't who just are godly because of this. It's like they have, like, I know what they're experiencing, I just don't have it to the same level they do. You know what I mean?
No, like that, and that already exists.
It does, but they've never really touched on it, is what I mean. Like, I do want to see a character that is like, that's not the, I don't want to see like the, like, yeah, obviously they're gonna have their Han Solo / like Mando character with a gun and stuff like that, but I want to see just a regular dude. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I don't like, and not in the way that Leia was just kind of like there, but she was capable of stuff. Like, I want to see just a regular dude who's there, who they kind of drive some of the plot points through. Like how we were just talking about how, whether you're watching this on YouTube, it's in a different video, how we were talking about like what a Trevor Story is to a Wonder Woman.
The Steve Trevor, yeah.
Or, that Trevor Story is a baseball player. Steve Trevor, what Steve Trevor is to a Wonder Woman. Like, something that creates like a character arc between the protagonist, or like in Maul, what Riley is to Devin, or what they aren't technically a dynamic, but like that kind of character disparity. Even though they're probably going to make Riley something a lot bigger, but
so I see what you mean, but like at the end of the day, you've kind of
I also worded that awful.
Yeah, but like at the end of the day, I just think you kind of can't do that anymore because the prequels introduced the concept of midichlorians.
Yeah.
So that kind of unless you were to somehow make an explanation for why the midichlorian count can be altered with somehow. If you did that, then maybe you could make it more of a case.
Here's my thing: you could introduce that as a new force ability. Sorry, I am stuttering a lot right now. Like you could and obviously this couldn't be obviously this is a stretch. This is just something that's interesting. But we're playing that game and we're gonna talk about that later. In the Infamous franchise, in Infamous Second Son, you know how the main villain gives small amounts of her power to a lot of her soldiers.
Yes.
Something like that, where they can inject, where a very powerful force user can give small, brief amounts to followers. Or
I would like an antagonist to maybe do that.
Something like that.
Yeah,
that's what I mean.
I see what you mean. I think that could maybe work if you do it the right way. At the end of the day, it just all revolves around, can you write it properly?
Well, yeah, but you could do anything, and it's, can you write it properly? You could do Great Jedi, but can you write it properly?
Yeah, the issue is
there's very little faith in that right now.
The reason why there's so little faith is because both to give Disney some credit for something is that both Disney and George Lucas are very in agreement of they only want either light side or dark side. Gray should not exist for either of them.
I do agree with you.
And I think that no, it's not even about me, because I personally really like the concept of Gray Jedi.
I think it's overdone.
The reason why it's not done at all. That's the point. The reason why Gray Jedi will probably never be a thing is because, first off, you need a different level of writing to do that properly, right? That Star Wars just hasn't had in a while. Let's just call it for what it is.
Arguably hasn't had since the original.
Well, no, because Andor has it. It just doesn't have nothing to do with the Force.
Oh, yeah, true.
But the thing is that you need a different level of writing to pull it off, and they've done so much now of either your light side or dark side that you've set too much of a precedent to now say that a gray can be in there.
Yeah.
Because the closest they've gone is, you're not going to know what this is, but in Star Wars Rebels, in Rebels, there is a creature called Bendu, who's pretty much you know who Kanan is?
Yeah.
Right? I'm pretty sure Kanan goes to visit this creature called Bendu. And I think Ezra goes there as well, where he's pretty much just a giant moose-like creature who is supposed to be the one in the middle, right? Not dark nor light. And even that was not received the best.
Yeah.
And didn't really work very well, because the existence of someone like that puts so much other stuff into question of if a Gray Jedi could have existed, why did Anakin have to fall to the dark side?
Yeah.
It makes a lot of questions of why did so many characters have to fall if they could have just been in the middle.
Also, correct me if I'm wrong. I think this might be a Legends thing, but isn't the entirety of the Force start with this one family, and they all evolved into the gods of their respective side of the Force?
You've asked me this before, but I'll explain it again. The idea you're thinking of is the Mortis gods. Yeah. That in the Clone Wars, Ahsoka, Anakin, and Obi-Wan get kind of sucked into this planet that doesn't technically exist, called Mortis, where there's the father, there's the son, and there's the daughter. The son is kind of the physical embodiment of the dark side. Yeah. The daughter is the physical embodiment of the light side, and the father is kind of just the one who keeps both of them in control, right? Balance, right? And so basically that whole arc was about foreshadowing that the Anakin's role, right, the chosen one, is supposed to be the next father one, right? And that basically those creatures, right, those characters are supposed to be kind of physical embodiments, because since it's during the Clone Wars, the son has a lot of power. Yeah. Because at that time in the galaxy, Palpatine is on the brink of enacting his plans for the Empire, and he's obviously one of the most dangerous dark side users to ever exist. You have Maul still rolling around the galaxy. Asajj Ventress is still alive. Dooku is still alive. So you have a lot of power in the dark side at that point. And so there is a lot of stuff done in that arc, and the daughter actually dies in that arc. And her essence is kind of trapped a little bit in Ahsoka by the end of that arc, which is why she's supposed to be like the guiding light post original trilogy. So that's the concept you're thinking of when it comes to, like, a family. They're not technically they are a family, but they're not it's not like some like random humans.
Yeah, they're like
right. There is no Adam and Eve.
They're separations of the entity of the Force.
Exactly. So like basically it's very heavily, and like we'll probably see this in Ahsoka season 2, right? Whenever that comes out.
I think it'd be this is a little cut. I think it'd be interesting if they. I actually kind of liked that whenever I heard about it. Obviously, I'm not tapped into everything about it. But if you say, like, with this character and their power, they becomes the revival of the daughter because of how much strength there is in the light side at that point in time, or something like that, and you play into that. I think there's more stuff to be done with that.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I would really think that you could make
Ahsoka.
Ahsoka's like offspring, because because not only she is spiritually a Skywalker, let's call it for what it is, and she has the blood of the daughter within her.
Yeah.
So you could very easily make it the Skywalker saga, because technically, a Skywalker blood is just blood of the Force.
Yeah.
And so technically, Ahsoka has that now. So that's why that's another reason why I think an Ahsoka like offspring or relative thing could work for that trilogy.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you got any more?
I have one more. I have one big one. And that is, if they make this new trilogy, this episode 10, 11, 12, right? To fix your mistakes from the sequels. One of the biggest things for me is, do not make your main character undermine Anakin's story. In that Anakin is the chosen one, not anyone else. You can still make a good, character, powerful, and important main protagonist without having to make them the quote-unquote new chosen one. Respect the storylines that have come before and add to them, instead of doing what the sequels did and saying, well, we need to rehash them or change this character or change that character. Let's do this to Han Solo and let's do this to Luke because it's different.
You could even arguably make characters as powerful as Anakin, but you have to change their meaning.
Exactly. You have to change their meaning within the Force. Yes.
Like, you could say that this character was given around the same midichlorian count, whatever. Obviously, that probably shouldn't be done, but you can do that and still write it without disrespecting Anakin and Luke, who were both basically just kind of shit on in the sequels.
Yes.
And I do agree with you. Messing with those past storylines is a big thing. That's why I really think they should bring in a character from the past, whether you think it's in Ahsoka, which from what we've seen of her race, they age at the same rate as humans, unless they do like an age slower as they get older thing. Or you could do...
you could very easily make the Ahsoka thing, just make it so she just lives longer because of the daughter.
Yeah. Or you could have it be like Grogu or something like that. There needs to be a character there that connects them. That way you can avoid just doing the same thing over. Like, I don't want to see a third A New Hope.
Yeah, no. Gotta be so bad. Imagine if it's just like a ginger kid on like a desert planet. That'd be terrible.
It's just Justin in there.
Yeah, but that's my last and main one, because I really, like, you already disrespected Anakin's, basically his entire character with bringing back Palpatine.
Yeah.
Because his whole, like, at the end of the day, the reason why Anakin exists, whether you like it or not, is to kill Palpatine.
Yes.
That is the purpose of his existence. Forget about, like, Padme, Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, Shmi, whatever you want to say about Anakin.
Sheev gotta go.
No, Shmi, his mom.
No, Sheev.
Oh yeah, Sheev does gotta go too. Yeah, but that's the point of Anakin's character. The point is, thematically, to bring balance, he exists to kill Palpatine.
Yeah.
So the fact that you brought Palpatine back is already insanely disrespectful. Number one, right? But we're not gonna spend too much time on that because we already know how disrespectful that is. But my point is, you cannot do something like that to undermine Anakin's story. Do not make it so that like, if they make it that like the chosen one title is like a generation to generation thing, or like a thing of like there's a chosen one every millennia. Like if they make it like an Avatar, Last Airbender kind of thing, that would be terrible.
We're not playing it like the NBA, bro. There's only one generational
exactly.
Time. Come on.
There's only one fucking Wilt Chamberlain, bro. There's not another one. There's only one. right?
But
there's
this one
only
actually
one
exists.
LeBron.
This one actually exists.
There's only one LeBron. There's only one whatever, right? You can't make it so that like I get it. You probably want your main protagonist for this trilogy to be very important within the Force, very powerful. I understand that. You don't have to undermine Anakin's story to do that.
Here's what I want.
What?
Since we're getting Dune 3 later this year, a false chosen one who believes from everything that they are a new chosen one, but they're not. Obviously, not the same way Dune does it, because obviously Paul is the father.
That could definitely work.
You create a character who thinks they are built for a purpose that isn't their true purpose, which honestly was one of my, even though there are some things about the Percy Jackson books you cannot like, one of my favorite things about those books, and like, I would say spoilers, but fuck you, those books are 20 years old.
Yeah.
Is that Percy Jackson is not the chosen one.
Yeah.
He is, like, because the main quest, that's why all of the big three gods stop having kids, is that the next child of the big three to reach 16 will either raise Olympus, however you want to use those homophones. But Percy is not the chosen one in that quest. He's not the one to bring balance, to bring peace, whatever. It's Luke. He wasn't a son of the big three. He wasn't none of that. He was literally just a dude who got manipulated it and all of this, but ended up being the guy who brings balance. A false chosen one, a fake out with it. It could be worked so well into that.
Yeah,
and that's where you could bring like the manipulation from like those like figures of the Force. I mean, they would obviously have to retcon like the brother's personality or something like that, where he's trying to like manipulate like an evil character into thinking you're the chosen one. You just have to do this. It would be a retcon. Probably a pretty big one.
Yeah.
But it's something you could do. It's a good direction to go, and it's a compelling direction. You could have it work to where little kids could still view it, but it's still in depth, like a. Yeah. And that's gonna be my last little point for you in this episode off. Is if you're going to make it targeted for kids, do it the Avatar way. Do not do it the Mando Grogu way.
Yes.
Do not make it marketed for kids, because it's just no one's gonna like it unless
make it surface level, enjoyable for kids, but have depth to it.
Yes, bro. It should not be a thing of I turned my brain off. It should not be that, bro. I'm sorry.
I hate that. I'm so glad you brought up that phrase. I hate that phrase, man. Turn your brain off in this movie is great. Turn your brain off in this show is amazing. No, it's not. That's not how that works.
Like, I'm sorry. Like, there's a reason that people talk
Unless it's Dora the Explorer, I don't want to hear that argument.
Yes, bro. There's a reason that people talk about Avatar: The Last Airbender till this day, is because as a 6-year-old kid, maybe even younger, you can go watch this and it'll be enjoyable. It'll still have that kiddie humor in there. It'll still do this, but you can go and watch that. I watched that last year. I watched it last year and I still really enjoyed it.
Exactly, like, because it has depth.
It has depth to it. It's something that you can pick up on, you can watch as a kid and enjoy, but pick up on as an adult and still really
and identify with it. Yes, I think that's a really big thing that they definitely have to do.
That is the direction that I think this has to go, because obviously it's always going to be marketed for a younger audience. It just depends how young they want to go. Mando Grogu, I think they went way too young, in my opinion. But I think a preteen...
I don't even think that was the problem with Mando Grogu. I think the problem with Mando Grogu was just that they...
Well, I think everything with Mando Grogu was the problem with it.
Yeah. But Mando Grogu was the problem with Mando Grogu.
I think the audience should be realistically from the ages of like 11 to 18.
Yeah.
Even though that's a kind of very varied age range. Yeah. I think if you put it in that then you can have an 8-year-old or 7 or 8-year-old watch the movies and still understand them and still watch them and enjoy them, and you could have a 40-year-old watch them and still really like them. Because you can't just go too kiddie. We're gonna focus on the fucking 10 Babu freaks who are just gonna sit there and be, they got me. Like, no, you can't do that. They can't do that bullshit. But you still want a kid to watch this and kind of
enjoy it, yeah,
and kind of be the kid in high school whose whole personality is Star Wars. Like, yeah, you kind of want that to happen. Like, you don't want to, like, you need Elijah to like Star Wars, bro. I'm sorry, you don't want to just go in a direction that you don't want to go in a direction with Dune where it's like you have to understand what's going on, you have to really like it for it to be a good movie. And those are amazing movies, no disrespect to them, but it's a hard balance, but it's a balance that needs to be achieved, because you can't, you can no longer just do bullshit with the exception of kids are always going to like us because we have cool glowy sticks. Yeah,
you just can't do that. And because that's the thing, they thought that was going to be enough, and then they released a sequel trilogy and they realized, oh fuck, yes. You know, the fact that Kylo Ren has a crossguard lightsaber isn't enough to make people like this.
Yes, bro. And like at the end of the day, a lot of like I've read about a lot of people liking, like, especially with a female audience that really like the sequels with Rey being the main character. But you have to, and like And I understand that. Like, I understand the representation you receive from that is really nice, but you can't just throw it in there to throw it in there. We can't get a Mary Sue. I want a well-written character.
And I'll tell you, real Star Wars fans who, and like I know this might come off as me trying to speak for them, but I've been in and around the Star Wars community enough to know, men, woman, boy, girl, regardless of age, regardless of gender, most people do not like the sequel trilogy. They representation, because they had a black man in the sequel trilogy too, and they did him wrong too. They had Rey in the sequel trilogy. They did her wrong by not knowing what the fuck to do with her character. Yeah,
but yeah, like, just moral of the story, whatever direction you go, which obviously we know it's going to be after chronologically.
Yeah.
Just make sure it's an actual plan. Make sure you have a direction that's not going to just shit on the 40 years of hard work that you've put into this franchise at this point. It's probably more than that. When was the first time? 80?
1977 was A New Hope.
That's 50 years ago, next year.
Yeah.
So you can't just go in a direction where you're just going to do bullshit and shit on everything good you had going for you. You just can't.
Yeah, it's just...
Because you need to... You're at a point where your franchise, even with Maul and even with the success of Grogu, your franchise is still very much on the downturn. Like, I hate to break it to you. You need to not only retain the old fans, the fans of older generations who love those older movies or older shows, whatever, you also need to bring in new fans. So you have to make it marketable for every age range, audience, whatever.
Yeah, and I think you can do that. You just have to have a plan.
Yeah.
You have to have a plan. But yeah, I think we pretty much said everything we needed to say for what we think how we think this new trilogy should be handled. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we're talking about this now. That first movie of that trilogy probably won't release for a very long time, so we'll have to be 2030. Yeah, we'll have to wait a decent bit to even see that. But we hope you guys enjoyed listening. Thank you for listening to the episode. If you're on YouTube and you haven't watched the first segment, go watch that. If you're on Spotify, thank you for listening to the entire thing. If you've gone up to this point, and yeah, we'll see you guys next week.